Hey everybody, welcome back. So for those of you guys that's been keeping up with our Tegu series, we're on handling session number 5 as of today. And I thought this was a really good opportunity to sit down and kind of recap what we've seen over the course of the last few days, maybe answer some comments and questions and so forth that we've had about it so far, and just kind of talk about what we expect to see, what our plans are, and maybe help some newer keepers kind of relate to the content a little bit better. Because we know that a lot of people experience the same thing when they're bringing a new animal in. So today we're just going to kind of do a little chit chat and a recap of what we've dealt with, go into a little background on the animal, and see if we can put things into perspective today on Intrepid Exotics. Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. So a couple quick things to keep in mind before we really get into what's been going on with him and so forth. And the first thing is that the whole goal of series like this is to try and make things as real life as possible. We all see videos of really dramatic encounters with animals, certain people going in and causing situations where they're fighting them, things like that. And we'll see other things where we may talk about socializing with a socialized animal, so you don't really get to see what they actually do. So this goes along the same lines as my Sri Lankan series did. And for those of you guys that caught that, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you that didn't, we took in a Sri Lankan python that was about 3 feet long and completely terrified of people. There was not a lot of time spent handling him. He wasn't abused or anything. I know the keeper that he came from was top notch, but he just didn't have a lot of time spent with him and terrified of people. And so we did a series of every handling session with him, starting at the beginning, taking the bites, taking the musk and all that stuff. And after 10 handling sessions, we got him comfortable to the point where he wasn't musking anymore, he wasn't biting anymore, he was relaxed and comfortable, and you could see him just enjoying being out and interacting and exploring the way it's supposed to be. If we're going to keep these animals, we want them to be as comfortable in their surroundings as they can. And there's techniques to doing that. So not only does that apply with snakes, it applies with lizards as well. And of course, sometimes the stakes are a little bit higher with lizards, because if you get a bigger one, like a tegu or a monitor lizard or something like that, we've got to make sure that we're getting them comfortable so they don't feel like they need to be biting us, because it hurts. I've taken some bites before. It's not pleasant. So we want to make friends with them. A lot of people may have a situation where they're bringing in an unfamiliar animal. They've got a temporary enclosure set up for them, and they've got to, figure out how to manage that animal and get that relationship built, get that trust built and so forth, and then typically immediately switch them into a different enclosure, stuff like that. So this is exactly what we're dealing with this guy. So it makes it about as real life as it gets. The enclosure that he's in now, it's okay for a little while. I'm going to be building him another one as soon as I figure out how I'm going to make it fit in the space down there, but I'm going to do it nonetheless because he needs more space. But this is all kind of real life stuff. And another thing to keep in mind too is that when we're doing these, when I'm talking through the techniques that I use, my thought process with them, keep in mind that this stuff is really personal. It's between the keeper and the animal, and there's basic things that we look for, but your techniques may be different from somebody else's techniques, may be different from my techniques, so things are going to vary a little bit. What works well for me may not work well for you. So that's something to keep in mind too. When there's not a whole lot of really carved in stone rules when we're doing this stuff, and anytime you're looking at something subjective, don't go from just one source. It's best to look at how a bunch of different people do it, and you can get good things from all of them, and kind of pick the parts that you're comfortable with. Use that to kind of determine what the common concepts are, and it'll help make all of us a little bit better. So, that's something to keep in mind too. Now, the background on this animal, apparently there was a time in his life where he had escaped and was out in the wild for a number of months. And just by some stroke of luck was found and brought back in. So I'm sure that has something to do with his demeanor and the lack of trust that he has. Now, whatever's happened since then, I don't know. But what I do know is that, as it stands right now, he's not fully mature. He's fairly old. So he's got some ingrained distrust of people that we're really working hard to work through. As far as some of the things that we're doing with him, over the course of the last 5 days, my goal has been to simply be in his presence, try not to be as intrusive as possible. I want to just be there doing stuff, where he can see me, but I'm not interacting with him. And then when I am over there interacting with him, I just want him to really get used to me, get used to my movements. One of the things that somebody had brought up was quit talking with your hands in front of him, quit moving your hands around because you're just stressing him out. Well, the thing is that at some point that animal has to get used to our hands. That's how we put food bowls in. That's how we interact with them. That's how we pick them up. That's how we pet them. We interact with them with our hands. So it's really important that they get used to seeing our hands moving around their head so that they don't want to bite at them every time they see them. It needs to be commonplace. One philosophy that I really like is Kevin McCurley always talks about how nothing is sacred when you're working on socializing an animal. Being able to touch their head, do whatever, wave around. And I've worked with a lot of animals like this where, you can do whatever you want to around their head with your hands and they just completely ignore you. And that's what we're looking for, because if they don't get used to that, then those times when you do have a hand over there, you may not be paying attention, you may be talking to somebody and they see your hand, they'll go for it. So that's one of the reasons why I do that. I intentionally, and I don't think I do it enough actually when I'm filming, but I intentionally move my hands around where he can see them so that he starts to get acclimated to seeing them. That's a really important part. And a lot of people say, well, it stresses them out. Well, yeah, it's going to stress them out at first, but if you do it consistently and regularly, sooner or later they're going to get used to it, and it's going to bother them much less when you go in to reach for them because they're used to seeing them. So that's my mindset on that, and that's why I'm going to continue, even getting closer to him and doing it more and so forth. And sooner or later we're going to get to that point where it doesn't bother him at all. But the thing that we're dealing with right now is he's just got that, and it's really weird too. These tegus are really intelligent animals. They are New World monitor lizards, essentially. They're not monitor lizards, but monitor lizards are from Indonesia and Africa, and they're Old World animals. Tegus are New World animals. Argentine black and white tegus, South America. So these are the biggest New World lizards that we've got. And so they're kind of similar in that respect. There's some nuances to tegus that are unique to reptiles, as in they're partially endothermic. Most lizards, reptiles, they're all exothermic. They're cold-blooded. It means that they've got to have heat from the outside in order to regulate their metabolism. But tegus are unique in the fact that they can, at times, internally regulate their body temperature and metabolism, which is something that's, of course, unique to reptiles. But anyway, neither here nor there. Since this guy has gotten kind of distrusting of people, and I'll sit in there with him and you can just see his expressions, and I know the camera doesn't capture it quite the same as it does when you're sitting there, but when you're used to working with lizards a lot, especially ones of the same species that are tamed down and relaxed and comfortable. You can almost read their eyes when they're looking at you. That's one of the things that we talk about with reticulated pythons, where, you know, we can see their eyes and we can see them looking around and thinking. We can see them processing information. My Nile monitor is the same thing. I can look in his face, and even without his ability to change his facial expressions, you know, you can just about tell what he's thinking, what his mood is, things like that. And it's something that's really unique with this particular lizard, is I see that desire in him to interact. And you can see it in the videos where I'll go down there and he comes up to me. He doesn't run away, he doesn't go and hide. I sit down and he comes up to me. But as soon as I go to interact with him, he gets defensive. So, you know, right now he's really conflicted. By nature, these things are so interactive and awesome to work with. You know, I mean, they're really, you know, probably next to the Asian water monitors, one of the coolest and most chill animals that you can work with. But in this particular case, he's unsure of himself. He's unsure of me. So, you know, when he comes up, I can sit there and watch while his eyes are open, because one unique thing to this particular animal is that the way he closes his eyes is this kind of surrender to the situation, which is really weird after working with the Nile monitor for so long. Is he doesn't surrender for nothing. And, you know, he never closes his eyes unless he's chill and he's relaxed and he's comfortable. You know, I'll scratch his eyebrows and he'll close his eyes and just kind of sit there and chill. But if he's on point, if there's something that he doesn't like, those eyes never close. He is on point, he's laser focused on you, and he's ready to fight. So it's really weird dealing with this animal who just kind of surrenders and closes his eyes like, okay, whatever happens, happens. So that's one of the things that we're looking to see, is for him to be there present with his eyes open more frequently, which he is doing, which is really cool to see. And hopefully here over the course of the next week or so, I'm going to intensify the handling with him. We're going to start picking him up. We're going to start doing some more interactions like that. I'm hoping probably, I think I'm going to do his next feeding on Sunday. So either Friday evening or Saturday, more likely Saturday. I mean, I'll be working with him every day until then, but on the weekend I'm probably going to close off Niles half of the enclosure and take him in there and just let him free roam with me sitting in there and see how he does. We're going to do some picking him up, some handling him that way, and start kind of working through that stuff, getting him to the point where he realizes he's not in trouble. So hopefully that works out really well. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of wanted to touch on a couple things with him. You know, we've get some great interest with this guy so far. I got some great comments, got some great suggestions and stuff like that. I've had it suggested to, you know, clicker train him and stuff like that. That's not something that I do. I don't clicker train or target train or anything like that. It's just never something that's appealed to me. It works great for some people. Some people do it and they can train their animals with clickers and targets and stuff, and it's great. And I'm sure we could do it too. I've just never really had the interest in doing that. You know, kind of like wearing gloves. No matter how hostile an animal might be, I just don't like wearing gloves. I like free handling. And I like to be able to feel the animal. There's that connection there when you're handling them. I think you just lose when you wear gloves. Plus the element of risk there that forces you to respect the animal, which is a really important part. You know, that is heightened when you don't have gloves on, and you know you got to respect them if you're vulnerable to getting bit. But yeah, I mean, another thing that was brought up too was you know, maybe the bites were food responses. And that's a reasonable assumption to make, because it's really common that an animal's gonna, in a food response, come up and take a bite at you. But the only difference is with this guy, he does not let me tongue feed him at all yet. I mean, not even tongue feed him. I tried offering him a banana the other day, and he just kind of looked at me like, you need to get away from me. Tried tongue feeding him a little piece of it, rubbing it on his mouth. Nothing to do with it. So from an interaction standpoint like that, he's completely shut down on that level anyway. And yeah, those are completely 100% defensive or intended to scare me away because he didn't want me in his space, which is why I'm really cautious with him. Even when I'm offering my hand to him and stuff like that, it's, every time I've done that and given him enough rope, he's trying to bite. So anyway, guys, just wanted to do a quick little rundown on that. If you guys want to see the series that I was talking about with the Sri Lankan, I'm going to post that playlist in the end screen. So we've got 10 episodes in there where it's nothing but working with him, start to finish. And that one's helped a lot of people with their younger bitey snakes, things like that. And I'll go ahead and just post a Tegu playlist in here too. You guys can go ahead and start that one from the first one and check it out. Like I said, it's a real series. It shows a real situation that a lot of people encounter. Like I said, a newer animal who's kind of taken in unexpectedly, is in a temporary enclosure. The whole ball of wax. Everything that could be a disadvantage first coming in is a disadvantage here. So we're going to go through the whole process, like I said, from day one. We're going to show handling him every handling session. We're going to show the enclosure as the new one gets built for him, and I'll explain how I did it, why it's set up the way it is. So that may help as well, because I know enclosures are a big deal. But should be a lot of fun moving forward. And by all means, like I said, if you guys have got more questions, more comments, stuff like that, jump down there. We'll have discussions about it and stuff like that. Just be polite. I've had a couple people jump in and start barking, and you're not going to get anywhere with me barking at me. You come in, you're being a tool, you're being rude, I'm just going to moderate you out, because we don't do that here. I love differing opinions, hearing different ideas, all that stuff. Just be an adult about it. But yeah, that's about all for the update. I'm sure there's a couple more things that I probably forgot to say, but follow along with it. It's a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be really rewarding in the end. So you guys have an outstanding day, and we will see you next time on Intrepid Exotics.